Now, once we know why do we need an array, let's start the implementation. So in this video, let's try to create an array. Now, how do we do that? In fact, in the last video, we have seen a basic syntax. So let's use it. So we can simply we can mention the type of array we are using, which is int, and we can give a name to it. Let's say nums. And then we have to put a square bracket to define that's an array equal to, and then if you already have the values here, you can assign the values itself, or you can specify the values dynamically. So here what I will do is I will put a curly bracket here, and since I know the values, I can directly put the values here. Let's say 3, 7, 2, 4. So let's say we have these 4 values, okay? And now I got an array with 4 values. It's that simple. The only problem is, how will I use those values? How will I print those values? Example, let's say I want to print all the values here, or maybe even this first value. Let's say I want to print 3. Because at the start, if you remember, when I mentioned that instead of using 4 variables, I can use an array. In the 4 variables, it actually makes sense because every value will have a different variable name. It's easier to fetch here. How will you fetch the first element from an array? Now what happens is, if I want to represent that array in a memory structure, what happens is, see, if you have one variable, you can create one box, right? But if you have multiple variables, you have to create multiple boxes here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is your array, which is names nums. Of course, the same code which you are doing. And then in this array, you'll be having these 4 values, which is 3, 7, 2, 4. Now what it means is, if you want to fetch the value, of course in one variable you have 4 values now. If you want to differentiate between all these values, you have to use some numbers, right? Some index numbers. The way you do it for the table columns, right? So we have numbers. In the same way here, we have to give them numbers. Now if you are assuming that this will be number 1, 2, 3, 4, no, that's not how your computer works. So array numbering starts with 0, the pointer member. It starts with 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. Now those are the index values. In fact, you know what should I do? I should convert that into different color. 0, 1, 2, 3. Now these numbers in yellow color are the index numbers for the array. Okay, so 3, 7, 2, 4, they are the values, but 0, 1, 2, 3 is the index. That means if I want to fetch the values, I have to mention nums. In this square bracket, you have to mention the number. Which index value you want to fetch. I will say I want to fetch 0. Now in this case, if we do that, let's compile and run. You can see we got 3. This is working. So whatever value you have here, you're able to print it here. What if I want to change this? I want to print, let's say, I want to print the value at number 1. So compile, run, you can see we got 7. So basically you can actually print these values one by one. Okay, that sounds good. How about updating the value? So let's say I want to change the value 7 here. I want to set 7 to 6. So basically I want to change the second value and I want the value to be 6. In that case, you can say index of. So when I say second value, it's actually 1 because the numbering starts with 0. So to say nums of 1 is equal to 6. Now that's how you change the value. And now if you try to fetch the same value here, let's compile and run. You can see we got 6. I hope that makes sense. So basically you can assign the value, you can print the value as well. What if you want to make it dynamic? Okay, how do I do that? I don't have these values, let's say, and then still I want to create an array. In that case, instead of using this syntax here, what you can do is you can say new int, and in the square bracket, you can mention the number, the size of the array, which is 4. Now this is another syntax. The only thing is, by default, all the values of this array will be 0. So of course you got 4 boxes, but the values are 0. And if I don't set the value here, let's check what is the current value for the index number 1, which is 0. So all the 4 values are 0. I want to change the value. So what I can do is you can specify, I want to change the index value 0 to, let's say, number 4. And then nums of index 1. So for every index, you have to set the value. Let's say 8, and nums of 2 is, let's say, 3. I'm just giving random values, okay? It's not like I have all these values prepared in my mind. But let's say for 3, the value is 9. Okay, so we got these values here. Now how it looks like in the memory, it's very simple. You got an array with 4 boxes. So the index value is 0, 1, 2, 3, and the actual value. So before assigning the values was 0, 0, 0, 0. But now since we have assigned the value, the value has been changed. The values are 4, 8, 3, 9. Okay, yeah. So 4, 8, 3, 9. Those are the values you have. Now, this is how you store the value. Now, if you can also fetch the value, let's see what happens. So at number 1, index number 1, we have value which is 8. And you can see we got 8. So this is working. But what if you want to print all the values? Now, that will be tricky. Let's try. So what you can do is if you want to fetch all the values, of course, you can just print this statement multiple times, right? The only difference you have to do is you have to say index of 0, index of 1, index of 2, index of 3. And you can simply fetch all the values, right? So compile and run, you can see we got all the values. This is working, yeah? But don't you think we are doing the same thing multiple times? It's just that the numbers are changing, that too in sequence. You know what we can do here? That's right, we can use a loop. So I can just remove all the extra statement just by using one statement. I can put that into a loop. Now the main question is, when I start a loop here, the loop will start, of course you have to say int I, but what should be the initial value for I? It should be 0. You know why? Because the index value starts with 0. And then less than, should I say equal to? We just have to say 3 there because the size of the array is 4, you have to stop at 3 and I++, that's one way. Or you can say less than 4, whichever format you follow, okay? And then just put that into a curly brackets. Now we can just shift this statement in the block so that it will execute. So basically we are using a for loop to print this. Now the only thing is, if you can see we are measuring 0, which means the loop will run for 4 times. It will simply fetch the index 0, I mean 0th element every time, or first element every time. We have to change this. We have to make it I so that the value of I keep changing here and you will get new value at a time every time. So compile and run, you can see we got the values. So this is how you can use an array. Of course, there are a lot of things related to array. How can we create multi-dimensional array? Can we use a different kind of loop? That we'll be seeing in the upcoming videos.